even a lot of people that did vote for Trump are beginning to realize that, wow, a lot of these things that he said he was going to do, he's actually going to try to do them. And obviously they've been met with resistance because the things that he stands for are not popular to American values, to people in the United States. Like, that is not in our best interest to ban people, to ban immigrants from countries all over the world from coming into our country. That is not a threat to our national security. And you know, the immigrant ban was not about safety, and it wasn't about, you know, protecting our country. It was about hatred, racism, and you know, kind of this discrimination against an entire religion of people. Like, that's not right anywhere.
In a way, you've anticipated our next question. I'll go straight there, and I'll get the other panellists to respond to it. But the next question comes from Omar Al-Kassab.
During the Arab Spring, when marching for freedom and democracy, I was shot, tortured by the Syrian regime, and forced to flee with family. Australia has kindly given us a new life, and after only 2 years of learning English, my brother has recently made the news when graduating as a dux of his school and currently studying to be a doctor. I'm also halfway through my business degree. Why would someone ban people like us from being citizens of his country?
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. I'll just make the point that your brother, and we'll come back to him in a minute, but your brother is sitting next to you, Saad, is sitting next to you there. Saad, we'll come back to you in a minute if we can. And Helen Andrews, what do you say to that, that question? Here's someone escaping from a dictator in Syria, making a life in another country, but such people are currently being prevented from even entering the United States.
Yes, for a period of 90 days. At this point, it's extremely inaccurate to talk about a ban on anything. The Trump administration wants to put in place a new system of vetting for its refugee population, and it's going to take 90 days to put that together. So right now, we're only talking about a suspension. Nobody's keeping anybody out permanently.
Omar, Omar, I'll come to you in a sec. Omar just put his hand up quickly, so I'll just let him respond to that.
So the Syrian ban is indefinite. It's 90 days for everyone, except the Syrian ban is indefinite ban.
Yeah. So, Helen, do you want to respond to that?
Trump is going to put the refugee cap back to where it was during the Bush years, and he has said that in accepting refugees from Syria, which is, 5 million people displaced, we can only accept 50,000. That given the limited number of slots America has, America should focus on people who are oppressed religious minorities, Christians and Yazidis. Whereas the Obama administration, of all the Syrian refugees that they let in, 99% were Muslim and only 1% were Christian.
So
okay.
of the countries that were actually banned for the 90 days in this ban, not one... people from these countries did not commit any kind of terrorist attacks on U.S. soil or kill any American citizens from any of the countries that he banned. But there were, I think, 3 or 4 countries that he did not ban that were largely Muslim countries where the terrorist attackers in the United States that have killed American citizens on U.S. soil did come from. And he didn't put bans on those countries because he does business with those countries.
No.
Okay,
no part of that is true.
Absolutely.
Okay, Trump doesn't do a lot of business in failed states. That's true. Not a lot of people do. But to claim that no refugee from those 7 countries has ever committed terrorism in America is simply not true. A Somali refugee stabbed 9 people at a mall in St. Cloud, Minnesota, while shouting Allahu Akbar until he was shot by an off-duty policeman and stopped. Another Somali refugee drove his car into a group of students at Ohio State University and then went on a stabbing rampage before he was stopped by campus security. Now, it may be that you don't count those as terrorist incidents because there were no fatalities. But the absence of any fatalities in those cases was no thanks to the attackers.
Okay, I'm going to bring in the other panellists, then I'm going to go back to our 2 brothers over here. But Josh Frydenberg wants to get in, then I'll go to the Premier and, of course, Daisy. So
firstly, I think that's a wonderful story, and it's wonderful to see you in Australia and your brother doing so well. And I have to point out that it was then Prime Minister Abbott at the time announced that we were taking 12,000 refugees from Syria, which was greater than the number going into the United States under the Obama administration. And we get demonised as a coalition for our immigration policy when in reality we take more people on a per capita basis from a resettlement from the UNHCR than any other nation in the world, and we have a number of women at risk coming to Australia in addition to our humanitarian program. Now, what Donald Trump did in the United States, to the point that Helen made, it is a 90-day process. Now,
so are you obviously Australia has undertaken some form of extreme vetting. Indeed, keeping people out of the country permanently is part of that. Are you sympathetic to what Trump has done?
well, he's the president of his elected president of his country, and it's not for me to say what process is he going to adopt.
No, but I'm just asking, are you sympathetic to what he's done, given that
other than the Syrian case you referred to, it's a temporary procedure that he's going through. And what is interesting is that President Obama listed those 7 countries as countries of concern. Now, Theresa May has pointed out in the British Parliament that there are 16 countries, including 6 of those 7, that don't allow Israelis ever to visit their country. There are some double standards here that we have to call out. As for we have a non-discriminatory policy in our country. We have a proud humanitarian program, and obviously this is a temporary issue that Donald Trump hopefully will work through in the weeks ahead.
I'm going to quickly go back to Saad. Now, we heard from your brother that you've learnt only since, I think, 2014 to speak English. You've now become the dux of your school. So congratulations for that, first of all. I'd just like to know how, having escaped from Syria, where there's a dictator, how you reflect on this.
I mean, it's just like, I just want to say I'm really grateful at the start. I'm really grateful for the Australian people to give me the opportunity to come here and study and finish my study and give my family safety that we lacked in Syria. And I just want to say that I will work my hardest, to put Australian name up the sky. And I want to ask Helen Andrews, don't you feel guilty to put us with the bad guys in the same basket?
I'm sorry?
Don't you feel guilty to put us with the bad guys in the same basket when you're fair to...
The basket, with the deplorables, the deplorable basket.
No, I think, Helen, what he's saying is that the way he looks at it, I think, is they've escaped from a dictator, having tried to get democracy in their country, but now they would never be allowed to go into the United States. And so that's the point he's making. They're being put in the basket with, let's say, the ISIS people from Syria, the same basket, and yet they're people who fought against the dictator.
The same values as the American values.
Sorry,
we struggled for the same values as the American and the Australian values. Like, we actually also learned English by watching the Australian Parliament because we liked democracy and freedom in this country and in the US. So when we putting in the same basket with the bad guys, it's so hurting for us.
Okay, well, let's get Helen to respond to that since you've asked her whether she feels guilty about this.
I think Donald Trump and all Americans want to help everyone in Syria as much as they can, to the greatest extent that America can. But it's a simple fact that a dollar goes further helping refugees closer to the Middle East. You can help 12 people in the Middle East for the price of resettling 1 person in the United States. So it really doesn't make sense if you're a humanitarian to concentrate on a few people winning the lottery when you could help 11 more people closer to the site.
All right, now we haven't heard from Daniel Andrews.
With the greatest of respect, I think what doesn't make sense is that you, as the centre of freedom and liberty and democracy in our world, the United States, that you would not judge people by their character, by their conduct, by their abilities, by their commitment. You would instead judge them by the God they pray to, how they pray, where they were born, where their parents were born. And Australians have been caught up in this. Dual citizens, because of their parentage, born here, have been caught up in this. I've had the great pleasure to meet these guys at Parliament House last year, and this is one story among so many stories that in my role I'm privileged to be able to hear. Refugees given an opportunity, a second chance to build a new life, and they repay us in spades. And we're very proud of you, and we are so pleased to have you here.
Thank you. So we have to be able to get on with the show and keep the conversation going. So if you're going to clap, keep it brief. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. The thing about immigration is that it has tended to be sort of sentimentalised over the last, little while, and that's fair enough. It's an uncomfortable issue. It's an awful
So you don't
issue.
think that story was sentimental?
I think it was incredibly sentimental, but look at it this way. The US is currently, according to the FBI, investigating 1,000 cases of people who could be implicated in terrorist attacks. Okay, we've had 37 terrorist attacks, not all with fatalities, but as Helen said, a lot of people are injured. A lot of families and friends of these people have been injured as well. There have been a lot of survivors. For instance, of the Boston bombings, I knew of a girl, she's a dancer. She lost her leg. She lost her leg because of these people. There are facts to be considered here. It's not a Muslim ban. It's 7 countries. It affects 12% of Muslims around the world. That's not a racist thing. No, it's not. It's not. If it were a Muslim ban. Settle down.
Sorry, please give her a go.
This is not to do with race. This is not to do with religion. This is to do with radical Islamic terror, which is the political ideology associated with Islam, which has absolutely nothing to do with you. I think your story is wonderful, and I think you should be allowed in. And I think this ban is incredibly sad because, as we've seen here, the troublemakers ruin it for the people who genuinely do need help. But countries have a responsibility first and foremost to their own citizens. It is a temporary thing. It will be lifted. I don't agree that there should be a permanent ban on Syrians. I don't agree with that at all, for all of the obvious reasons. But as Helen said, it's a 1 to 12 ratio. It is cheaper to resettle people in the Middle East. It is safer. And Donald Trump, from what I read, is actually in negotiations at the moment with the King of Saudi Arabia to instigate these. It costs $64,000 for the first 5 years for a refugee in the United States. That is the cost of 12 in the Middle East. Hang on a second.
Just a very brief one, because it seems that we're going to be repaid many times over.
Many.
For people who actually enter the community, become ducks of their school, get jobs as scientists or whatever. Do you see that as a counterbalancing argument?
No, because, look, you've got to look at the facts here. You've got to look at the technicalities. Yes, of course, it will be repaid, but it takes a while. The average, refugee who comes in has about 10 and a half years of education, okay? It takes them a long time to get in. They cost a lot in welfare. It is safer to relocate them to Saudi Arabia, places like that. And to be perfectly honest, I'm appalled that Saudi Arabia actually has done nothing to help this refugee crisis. These are their people. And finally, this is happening. This is what we need to focus on. It is safer, it is cheaper. They won't get the cultural shock, they won't get the climate shock. It's not fair to go from Iran to Minnesota. That's not fun for anyone.
It's safer.
We're going to...
So are safe zones. So are safe zones.
Hello, my name is Jane. I'm social justice waste. Agree with me or you'll be shamed.